What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. There's something almost meditative about watching a well-running assembly line. Back when I worked warehouse jobs, I didn't realize that I was learning something that would shape how I think about building systems. It was one shift where it clicked in my mind. Everybody was synced up, pallets were moving quick, nothing jammed, nobody was rushing, but there was a lot of output. That's when I realized to get the speed, it's all about design. We were faster because the system made it easy. The insight here is flow is designed, not forced. That's the first real lesson. A really good system pulls you forward. It carries the momentum. And that starts from your morning routine to your creative process to your business process. Fast forward to now, I catch myself thinking the same way when I build workflows, edit, and anything I do. I'm not thinking, how can I work harder? What I am thinking is, how can I reduce friction? The warehouse taught me to think like a system designer, even if no one called it that. Here's a practical tip. Observe your flow. If you're stuck, step back, observe. Where does your flow break? Where do you feel resistance? And that's the spot you need to fix. Most people try to push harder through it, but there's ways to make it so you don't have to. If you're getting insight from this, make sure you're subscribed with your notifications turned on so that you don't miss the daily uploads. It supports me in making this content available for all of you. The closing takeaway is, a good line doesn't feel rushed. It feels inevitable. Stick around because we've got two more topics to cover. We're gonna talk about bottlenecks and the mindset shift from becoming a worker to a builder. How to spot the bottleneck. Let's use an assembly line as an example. Most people think the slowest person is the bottleneck. That's wrong. The real bottleneck is whatever's misaligned, physically, mentally, or structurally. And if you can learn to spot it early, you can fix systems before they fail. Here's some context. In the warehouse, we'd sometimes get backed up on a lot of orders, and management would start blaming the people at the back of the line. They're too slow, they need to hustle. But every time I actually sat back and watched what was happening, it was never the people, it was the setup. There was a time where we were stacking packages into pallets, but the pallets were placed really far away from the rollers, and where they wanted us to put the finished pallets was also really far. Couple that with only having one jack and two full lines to manage. It doesn't seem like much, but across multiple hundred items, it's a disaster. Small friction multiplies over time. Just a couple of extra feet walking, or something being in your way, or repetitively breaking down across a whole workday adds up exponentially. But instead of fixing the layout, management just kept blaming the people day after day. This taught me something massive. The real bottleneck is usually invisible to the people blaming others. And it's the same in life. If you're not productive, it's probably because you are lazy. Or maybe your workplace is cluttered, your tools are slow or outdated, and your system doesn't match how your brain works. Here's a practical tip. Try running a bottleneck scan. Take one area of your life or your business, your morning routine, your creative process, your workflow, and look at where things slow down. Is it the start, handoff, a tool that you hate using? That's your bottleneck and you need to fix it. After that, your entire system's gonna speed up. Quick pause. If this is helpful, hit subscribe. I'm sharing real systems thinking that took me years of experience to get. Here's a closing reflection. Spotting bottlenecks is not about assessing blame, it's about seeing clearly. Once you start seeing systems this way, you're never gonna stop. Every time you feel stuck, you're gonna go, there it is, a bottleneck. Next up, the mental shift from worker to builder. There's a moment in everyone's life where you stop thinking about just doing the task and start thinking about how the task is designed. And that right there, that's the shift where you go from worker to builder. In the warehouse, I used to just show up, follow instructions, move this here, stack this here. But over time, after doing that for a year and a half, something kind of switched in me. I started wanting to pay attention and notice what worked better and what didn't, because we were starting to have a lot of problems in the warehouse. It was important for me to ask myself questions like, why do we do it this way and not this way? Eventually, I started suggesting little tweaks, little changes we could do, and that made things a lot smoother. Here's a story to give it some context. There was one week where things got freaking busy. I'm talking about 2 or 3 times the amount of orders that we would normally get. At the same time, we didn't have the same supervisor that we normally had, and I ended up moving around pallets so we could move efficiently without bumping into each other. Nobody told me to do it, I just saw the inefficiency and I did it. The other shift was stacking them in a specific way that was just really inefficient and making it hard to move around in the warehouse, and the supervisor didn't instruct everybody to start organizing the pallets the way we normally do. Having a moment where making a small change made a massive difference in the rest of my day really got me addicted to not just doing the task, my brain was now wired to improve the task. Once you flip that switch in your mind, you start seeing opportunities to fix bottlenecks everywhere. You stop asking what's the task and start thinking what system would make this work. And that's when real growth begins in anything you're doing. Even now with how I record these videos, I think in systems. How can I batch this? How can I reduce friction in recording? And that mindset came from moving boxes. But it applies to everything you build. Here's a practical tip to close it off. Start asking yourself, why this way? Next time you're doing anything, editing, working, cleaning, pause yourself and ask, why am I doing it like this? And that question opens the door to systems thinking. From here on out, I really hope that you start to think like a builder instead of a worker. If you find this really helpful, go ahead and subscribe because I do daily videos just like this. It helps grow the channel way more than you know. The builder mindset, it stays with you. You're not just executing anymore, you're architecting your life.